Hi, welcome to this episode of Toysbackzen. I'm your host John, and today we're going to be looking at this Anycubic Mono 3D printer. This is a resin printer. I've had it for about 5 months, and I finally had the time to figure out how to use this thing, and this is going to be my process of printing some Cylon legs that articulate. So here's my 3D printed Cylon legs and torso. This was my second print. The first print, it didn't stick to the build plate. And so these are all the things that I'm learning as I'm learning how to do 3D printing. But I got these on Thingiverse, and it's somebody else's design, but I'm going to try them out today and kind of see how it works. My first print didn't stick to the build plate. This one worked really well, so I was really surprised. After the second print, I was able to get a successful print. What I've learned is you need to print off of the build plate using supports. So after I got this off the build plate, I found that the legs did not really fit in the torso very well. There were some supports in there that were already in the print when I downloaded this file, so I had to cut those out with a knife. And after those are cut out, I found that the legs were actually really loose. I'm putting a small piece of paper that I've folded 3 or 4 times, and that seems to have fixed the problem. Not only are the legs tight, but they stay in place. And it also widens them out too, because before the legs the feet were touching each other, so it actually keeps them separated. So here's the original Cylon. These were made in 1978 and 79 by Mattel. The legs are just, in a weird pose, and I've got about 10 of these, so I'm going to take at least one and see if these legs will work. So let's take some, I got some flat black trum-clad paint here, and I'm just going to paint them really quick, let it dry, and then we've got some silver paint detail that we need to paint on it too. So as you can see here, the black paint is nice. I will be painting these with a semi-gloss clear coat to protect them, but they seem to be in scale with the original legs. And it looks pretty good. I don't really know how they're going to articulate yet until I get it all together, but we'll see. But I have to take one of these Cylons, and I'm going to figure out which one to use. I want to take the worst Cylon that I've got. Most of the time, these Cylons I can get for anywhere between $3 to $5 when they're in this bad of a condition. And then usually in half decent condition with the chrome still on them, I see them for about $10 and up. Of course, they made gold chrome ones too, and those are a lot more expensive. Never seen one of those in the wild yet, or even at any of the toy shows. So the first thing I need to do is take this Gorilla Glue and put the legs into the hips or the crotch, whatever you want to call it, and glue those two pieces together so that we have articulated legs for the Cylon. Now, these torsos had like a hook on the right and left side. In the original movie, the Cylons had like hooks on their belts so that they could have a sword hanging, so maybe that was what it was for. But I didn't like it, and I don't have any swords for this anyway, so I actually just cut them off. Just going to use a little glue. Now we want to be careful here. Don't use too much glue. We don't want to glue the legs in place. So I'm just going to use a toothpick here, the glue. I take some from the top just to kind of take some like extra glue off that area and just put it down in the crotch so that when I clamp this together, it will be tight down on that area too. Again, being careful not to get any glue on the legs or getting too much glue in there so that when there's squeeze out, it glues the legs to the crotch. Now there was some prepare work for this. I had to sand the two halves of the torso so that it was flat, so that they would glue together really well. There is always some finishing work when you're doing 3D printing from the experience I've had so far. We've got to paint the chrome back on, but I'm just looking for the worst figure that I have out of my worst figures. This one looks like to be the worst. Not only is the end of the foot been scraped flat, but the chrome is almost completely gone. And I don't know how delicate this plastic is. It looks like it's pretty delicate, so that's why I'm trying to use the one that's mostly broken, because if I break this and it can't be fixed, then at least I'm not losing out on much. One arm is glued and the other one is really loose, so we got to open this thing up. So I'm just taking a small, thin, flathead screwdriver and see if I can pull this apart a bit. Yeah, see, this arm was glued on, and something broke inside. So they, the original owner must have glued this on. Some kid or parent had to crazy glue the arm on. So that helps me be able to look inside and see what's holding this thing together. Let's get the knife out. See if we can separate this a little bit more. This one on the bottom is still connected, and I had to break it to get it open. So that's what the chrome looks like on the inside, which is what it should look like on the outside, and it's been worn over time. So I'm glad I got it open now. We can take a look at the parts and how they're connected together. Broke that little peg, but that's okay. We'll glue that back together. Also, you can see here that one of the arms, there's the cylindrical disc that holds it in the body. That has broken off, and that's why it was glued together. Oh, there it is right there. It's inside the legs or the torso. So let's get that out. Maybe I can reuse that piece and glue the arm back together. This figure is also going to need a weapon. This is the 3D printing process that you go through when you're using the Photon software that comes with the Anycubic resin printer. And I have quite a few Cylons. I think I've got 10. So I printed a whole bunch, and then I'm also going to send some to somebody that helped me out one time. He's a YouTuber. I'm going to send some to him. I'll contact him and let him know I'm going to send these out, because I know that he enjoys collecting these too, and maybe he can use some 3D printed guns. Now I'm just going to glue that disc onto the left arm. Let that dry, and then we'll use that. We'll reuse the arm again for sure. There's nothing wrong with that. While that glue is drying, I'm going to re-glue the peg back on to the body part. I'm sure if I glued this together without it, it would probably still work, but I'm going to put that support back in there. So here's the 3D printed legs. I like them, they're pretty nice. Now that the legs are kind of together and it's glued, just checking the articulation, and I'm actually a little disappointed with these. They don't actually bend 90 degrees at the hips. I think if I'm going to try to learn how to design my own things. I'm just kind of figuring that out right now, which is taking a while, because that's the part that probably takes a lot most work when you're trying to design your own parts. But if it was me and if I was to design these, I would have made it so that the crotch didn't impede the movement of the legs at least 90 degrees forward, because, well, that's the idea. You want to be able to put this in a vehicle or something like that. But anyway, we're going to work with what we have. This is just an experiment. I'm going to take some silver paint pen. I'm going to paint the silver details on the legs. And I'll be repainting the silver detail not only on the legs, but also on the gloves too, and on the other two Cylons that I have here. All right, we'll let that sit and dry for a little bit. The next step is to paint the chrome. These Cylons usually for me have the original red dot paint, and with these Molotov chrome pens, I've got 3 of them, 4mm, 2mm, and here you can see 1mm, where I can get right in the mask here on the helmet of the Cylon and get right in there and save the red dot that's original. Most of the time that wouldn't matter to most people, but I just think it's kind of cool. All right, so I got his head painted chrome here. It looks really good. This Molotov chrome, I've said that several times in my videos, you gotta let it cure for at least 2 weeks, if not a month. So this video will be filmed up to the point where I chrome paint everything, and then I'm going to spend 2 weeks doing other things while the chrome is drying. I'm going to also take some time and chrome these guys, and then I'll see you back later on. Here's a shot of the 3D printed weapons. They turned out really great. And here's a shot of some other things that I've been printing while the Molotov chrome pen has been drying. I've got some G.I. Joe Vamp 2 parts, some weapons that I'm missing. These windshield wipers for the Snowcat are pretty close to the original. They look great. I'm really happy with those. We've got an X-Wing fighter canopy. We've got some Fang missiles. We've got the Fang bars for the motor. Got some Motu weapons. Here's He-Man's axe. I printed 3 of those because I've got a few He-Man figures that require those, vintage ones. I find this resin that I got, it's the Anycubic white resin. It's kind of brittle. And if you can see here, I have a broken piece on the end of that X-Wing laser. Just taking the supports off has made it so that the parts are actually, they broke because the plastic is so brittle. So you have to be careful. Here's a lid for the Hoth playset. These are supposed to be 2 pieces from the original, but when I printed it out, the file was actually both of them put together, which is just fine. I'll just cut it in half. I only need 1 of them, actually. Here we have a part for Trapjaw. This is gun. We've got Beastman's whip handle. That's pretty cool. And these are printing out really well. It's really, it's great detail. And the reason why I went with a resin printer is because of the detail, even though it is more difficult printing process with the cleanup and you've got to cure the resin in a UV light. But the detail with the 3D prints are just amazing. And to me, that's worth it. Now, I do have some 3D printing lines happening, and I think that's just because I've done some research, and I think some of the parts need to be lubricated better, because I just took it out of the box and printed. But here we go. Here's all the parts I've got painted in the flat black, and then I did a semi-gloss clear coat on everything. So here's an original X-Wing laser, and here's the 3D printed one, and with the semi-gloss, it looks great. I had an issue with 3D printing the map, the Indiana Jones map, is that I ran out of resin, because this is a solid piece. It's not hollowed out. So I ran out of resin and actually caught it probably right when it ran out. So I just paused the printing process, put some more resin in the vat, and it's still printed and it looks pretty good, but there's a split halfway through the print that you can clearly see where it ran out of resin. I'm going to be restoring this vintage white X-Wing fighter. I bought this for $20. It was missing the canopy, so I 3D printed a canopy. It was missing the lasers, and so I have two original ones, and I 3D printed the other ones, which look great, and they actually fit pretty good. But also, the wings are not working, and I know there's lots of guys that have fixed this online, Retro Blasting and Toy Polloi. They've done their own version of this, their own restoration of this, but I'm just going to do it anyway. I think it'd be a fun video to check out and see the process that it takes to do it. See if we can fix the wings. I don't really remember why the wings break and what happens, but when I open this up, I'll look at it together. Those lasers look great. I love the look. I'm really excited to have this. I had this as a kid. It was one of my first Star Wars vehicles. And here's another look at the map, the Indiana Jones map. I did like a sand color, and I really liked it, but I wanted to try to like dirty it up a bit. And I did some black and brown washes. I'm not really a fan of what I've done. I think I'll go back and paint it the sand color. Really happy with those. I also printed out the Cylon guns. Turned out really well. And then I have all these parts up here that still needs to be painted. Here's those G.I. Joe missiles for the Vamp 2. I've got Ghostbusters parts up there. Okay, so I've been printing for 2 weeks. And this is 2 weeks later. I've got everything chromed. I've got the guns in their hands. These look fantastic. Totally worth having a 3D printer. It's pretty much paid for itself when it comes to all the things that I've 3D printed and how much it would cost to buy all these parts original. Now, don't get me wrong, if I ever see these parts for great prices that are original, I will pick them up. But for now, these will be great replacements until the meantime. The chrome looks awesome. It's safe to touch. Here's the guy with the articulated legs. You can see here how his legs only move about 45 degrees, but I was hoping to get 90 degrees. So I might actually do some of my own designing and maybe make some better legs. These are great for now. Thanks for watching this episode of Toysbackzen. This ended up being a long project. It was really satisfying, and it got me started into the 3D printing process. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. Leave a comment down below and let me know what you think of 3D printing parts and what you think of this Cylon. I think it's pretty cool. So take care and happy collecting. See ya.